Welcome back to Forward Progress presented by FanDuel. We are back and we're taking a look at the AFC West. We're going to be taking a look at futures, some player stuff. Going to be taking a look at a bunch of different things. I'm your host here, Jason Cooper, alongside Judah Forking at Throw the Damn Ball on Twitter. Let's cut to the chase. Let's get right into it. AFC West division odds right now up on your screen. Kansas City Chiefs at the top of the board, minus 115. And let's start with them at the very top of the board. Same old song and dance every single year with the Kansas City Chiefs, as it has been for the last couple of years. Elite coach, elite quarterback. But this time, you feel like they have the best wide receiver trio they've ever had. Travis Kelce, he's definitely on the wrong side of the age curve, but he's still kicking around. My only concern with them is maybe that offensive line. They got torched on the edges last year, and we really saw that in the Super Bowl. But who am I kidding? It's the Chiefs. It's Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. Minus 115 to win the division. Personally, I feel like that's a little short. Judah, why don't you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the Chiefs? Do you like that number 115? Do you agree with Mark, or do you think that's still a little too short? Or am I wrong here and you're taking the complete other side?
First, I just have to call you out on an absolutely outrageous take. This is the best receiving core that the Chiefs have had.
Wide receiver trio.
Wide receiver trio, and you included Kelce in there, which is just like 2019, like peak Tyreek Hill, peak Travis Kelce did exist. Like those guys are miles better than what they have right now. But I just thought that needed to be said for everyone.
Sammy Watkins? Are you throwing Sammy Watkins in there?
Sammy Watkins, this year's Marquise Brown, corporate needs you to find the difference between those guys. But to answer your question, I'm torn in multiple directions with the Chiefs. On the one hand, you got to have the strongest of priors in Mahomes and his ability to come back. He breaks all of the usual rules of statistics and regression to the mean, and sure, you can there are different ways of knowing things. This is a better way of putting it. I guess a little philosophy class here, right? You can say statistics and math is one way of doing it, and that is obviously legitimate. And obviously, I subscribe to that theory very well. But also, you can witness things with your own eyes and believe those things to be true, and that is also a way of knowing things. And the data does back this up. Statistically speaking, you assume that to regress, but Patrick Mahomes has done everything possible to win. Trailing in the fourth quarter of games, in the second half of games, he's almost twice as good as the second best quarterback since he entered the league. The dude is an absolute unicorn. You see it on their record in one-score games, and even on the macro level of the Chiefs' production on offense is inversely correlated with the defense. The last 2 years when the Chiefs' defense has been good, the Chiefs' offense has been less good. And Mahomes has put up his best years in the years where the Chiefs' defense has been less good. He just kind of closes that gap. And we should have a really, really strong prior on that. That's on the one hand. All right. And it's just all right, they're going to do whatever they need to win. And it's not a coincidence that they're in the AFC Championship game every single year of Mahomes' career. On the flip side of it, part of what has made Mahomes so special is, in addition to just being incredible in scheme and having Andy Reid as the king of offensive minds, is that his ability to create has been unbelievably good. He went a period of, I think it was 125 scrambles, where the base rate of a sack is 10%, where he did not get sacked. The average quarterback would have gotten sacked 13 times. And Mahomes didn't get sacked at all. He's been an absolute alien at evading sacks and creating out of structure. And that kind of disappeared last year. His sack rate was below league average when what I call disruption, which is when either pressure disrupts the quarterback from ever being able to go through his progression, or there is perfect coverage and no receiver is open. Mahomes was below league average. And that slightly concerns me, because that has been a skill set that he's been so dominant with. And the Chiefs' offense did falter. We should also start from that expectation of you could say that's because the Chiefs' defense was great, and they had another great defensive year. But it's also possible that the offense did take a step back, and the sacks do concern me. So all that is to say, I have a very strong prior on the Chiefs and Mahomes. I am, though, going to update very aggressively if I start to see the trend from the end of last year of Mahomes like not being able to evade sacks that create ability to like he's getting older. He's less willing to take hits. He's kind of a little fatter too. I mean, we'll see his shape in the we'll see his shape in game time. Now, look, I just know you're gonna put the thumbnail as like
Fat Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes is fat. But
It's a great
yeah,
idea.
I look come in with the assumption that like this is still the Chiefs' offense, and like we should expect them to be one of the very best in the NFL. But I'm going to update very aggressively early on in the season if we start to see some of the kind of trends from last season continue into this year.
Yeah, if Mahomes starts to decline and you're somehow missing it, don't worry. I'm sure NFL Pinnacle Beat will be all over it. Or sorry, NFL Donator, whatever his Twitter handle is now. I'm sure you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know. But yeah, no, this offense should be set to explode with a great wide receiver core that they have. Plus Travis Kelce. Let's move on to the next. Team here in the. Let's go with the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's start with the bottom. Let's go top, bottom, and then we'll sandwich the two in the middle towards the end of the video. The Vegas Raiders right now, 12-1 to win the division. Pete Carroll comes in, new head coach. They get Geno Smith, new quarterback. Quarterback play was terrible last year. Defense is, I mean, for them, it's relatively talented. They have kind of talent on all three levels. We could see a bounce back for them as well with I think they were top 5 in adjusted games lost due to injury on defense. So, I mean, the Raiders seem to improve on offense just by nature of having a much better quarterback. They draft Ashton Jeanty. Their wide receiver room, their pass catching room, if you say, is a little bit thin behind Brock Bowers. But yeah, 12-1 seems a little steep. How would you be looking to attack the Raiders? Do you agree with this 12-1 price? Is it too high? What are your thoughts on them versus market expectations?
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I think I like the Raiders relative to market, but I do not like this division bet at all. In fact, I would probably sell. You know, if there was no vig, I'd probably sell 12-1 here. It's just like so much needs to go right for this team, especially in this division, to actually win it. I think you kind of make the case of like this team actually kind of has a high floor, and like their win total is not very high. It was like 6.5.
It wicked up to 7.5, but it's heavy juice to the under.
Okay.
So it's a little less palatable now.
6.5, 7.5, whatever.
Yeah.
Last I checked, it was at 6.5. And that's very low. Let's be very clear on that. And I think you're right to point out, like they're getting a lot better quarterback play. Geno Smith has gone through offensive changes, and he's been basically the same quarterback every single season, which is just like definitely like not in the top 10 and definitely not below average, but like somewhere in between. And like that's stabilizing, and like that's enough to win games. It's almost that like purgatory, you know, if you're doing team building, it's almost the worst spot to be in. The other thing I'd say is that this rushing offense was a complete disaster last year. The run blocking was fine. Like their rates of, their PFF run grade or their rate of perfectly blocked runs was like middle of the pack, totally fine. Their rushing was just a disaster. It was dead last by virtually any count. And like, yeah, they bring in Ashton Jeanty. That's going to matter. They're going to be trickle effects of that. In like the Raiders basically were never in third and short last year. Like they're going to just gain more yards on early down. Your offense is going to be more efficient. And by virtue of having Geno Smith, the run game can be more efficient than last year. And I think, like, yes, Brock Bowers is an alien. Like, Jacoby Myers can still play. They've got some other pieces. Is it a great unit? No. Do I think that it's still formidable? Yeah. And on the defensive side, like, Max Crosby is still terrific. I mean, we'll see what happens with Malcolm Kuntz, who did not play last year, but he was awesome in 2023. They still have Christian Wilkins. Like, this is a really good defensive line, at least on paper. And like, I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 defense. And you kind of add it up, and they're like, as being like the 20th best team in the NFL. Do they have is Geno Smith magically going to turn into a top 5 quarterback? No. Is he going to turn into a top 10 quarterback? No, probably not. And contrary to what some offseason lists have been saying, I do not think he's a top 10 quarterback. And in that, I don't think they have a chance to win this division. especially with Herbert Mahomes and a frisky Broncos team, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I see this as a team that certainly can have value in the futures markets, just in a simple over under. Like they're pretty solid.
Yeah, I think this the name for this division behind the Chiefs is like frisky. Feels like there's a couple frisky teams in here. All three of them at the bottom of the board feel frisky. My question to you is about Ashton Jeanty. You mentioned that they had some great run blocking, but it's just the guys who were carrying the ball just didn't really do it for them. Just based on FanDuel's pricing right now for season long futures, Ashton Jeanty, like if he's around the high 70s, low 80s in rushing yard props early on in the season, do you feel like that might be something that's a little bit too high for a team that is most likely going to be trailing in a lot of games? I know this is a lot to like talk about this early in the offseason. There's still 71 days left until the start of the NFL season. But like, is that something you'd be looking towards where maybe because of the hype, because of the draft pedigree, because of those things you mentioned there, that his number might be inflated early on?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It's like so context dependent. Like, are they 7-point dogs? Are they 3-point dogs? Again, like, I want to see usage in the preseason. I want to see like how many reps is he getting with the starters. Do we anticipate him being an 80-20 guy, a 70-30 guy? I kind of like Chip Kelly. We'll see kind of how he adapts to the modern NFL. I just you can't. It's too far in advance to know the specific numbers here.
Yeah.
But like you gave me a specific circumstance, maybe I can get you something.
All right, fair enough. His number right now on FanDuel, if you're looking towards his season-long number, 107, 1,075 and a half rushing yards on the season for Ashton Jeanty. Do with that what you will. Before we get into the Chargers and the Broncos, might be the offseason, but if you want to bet on NFL futures, FanDuel is the place to go for that action. They have tons of markets available, including player award props from MVP, season leaders, passing props, rushing props, and receiving props. They also have team futures of who's going to win the Super Bowl, to win any conference, to win their division, stage of elimination, win totals, including alts. And guess what? All those things I mentioned, you can parlay them together on FanDuel. The excitement for something new is live at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/forward progress to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/forward progress. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. They are second in terms of division odds for the AFC West. Right now priced at plus 310 to win the division. A team that vastly outperformed their expectations last year, maybe setting themselves up for a little bit of disappointment in terms of how well they did last year coming into this year, because the expectations are now pretty high for them. They're going to be facing a much tougher schedule than last year. In terms of their roster, they improved on their interior offensive line, but they still kind of didn't address their lack of depth at receiver. They didn't really make any big, crazy moves that would kind of shake their roster up. Talk to my buddy Jeff Feinberg here. Imagine he's in front of the camera. He's on the other side of the camera. What do you make of the LA Chargers? Are you going to let them down easy here? Do you think the expectations are too high in terms of the futures markets, or are they just about right for the Chargers?
I think they're probably a little bit high. I mean, look, I still think they should be right around that like playoff caliber team. Their quarterback's still Justin Herbert, and that just provides such a high floor. I'm worried about this defense. First of all, like their numbers for the season do look great, but I think a lot of that is schedule dependent and like really beating up on bad teams. Like that Panthers Week 2 game was one of the better like defensive performances, and like that's gonna really boost the overall numbers. Like they got shredded towards the end of the season by some of the better teams in the NFL. Like the Bengals had some of their best games. The Broncos, the Chiefs, the Ravens. Like I don't think this is a particularly great defense, and they also kind of lost a lot in the defense. Like Joey Bosa's gone. I mean, the guy's never healthy, but they lost Poona Ford, they lost Asante Samuel, they lost Christian Fulton, and it's not as though they added so many pieces in return. I think personnel is worse, and this was not a particularly great defense adjusted for opponent. So I'd be a little bit concerned there, and I think you're absolutely right to mention, like, they once again just did not really address receiver. I mean, they took Trey Harris in the second round. Maybe he turns into something, not exactly the most heralded of draft prospects, but that has not stopped receivers from producing before. But like Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston right now as either your wide receiver 2, 3, or 4. These were 2 of the worst separators in the NFL last season. Like, this is not a good receiving room, as good as Ladd McConkey is. And I think Ladd McConkey is an absolutely terrific player. They still failed to address the wide receiving room. And what I think is almost equal signal is what they did choose to address, which is like signing Najee Harris, drafting Amari Hampton. This is a team that wants to run the football. And they did this in the first half of last year. And the team was not that efficient. And then they started passing a ton in the second half of the season. And all of a sudden, the passing offense was way more efficient and the offense was much better. And that's true even as like J.K. Dobbins went down with injury, which forced them into the pass situation. That I'm always worried about, like a little bit of an opportunity cost problem, which is like, yeah, the run game does improve, but it just like takes the ball away from Justin Herbert, which is the most valuable part of this offense. So I'm lower on them because I think this is a team that's going to move closer to that, we want to run the football Jim Harbaugh style as they did early in last season. And that concerns me. But the flip side of that is like they still have an alien at quarterback. And certainly if Trey Harris emerges and you get Ladd McConkey, like the pieces are certainly there for them to be as good as they were last year. I'm just a little bit skeptical given how they're revealing their preference of like, we want to run the ball. And it's a shame. It really is.
Yeah, it's definitely is a shame. But I wonder if you mentioned their defense got a little bit worse. I wonder if that like in some backwards way helps them out because it puts them in situations to throw the ball more by being behind later on in games. Who knows? Hopefully that's the case. And just out of curiosity, I want to ask you a quick question about Quentin Johnston. We saw a third year kind of breakout for Jameson Williams last year. Do you think that Quentin Johnston could kind of have that in his third year, or is this just like a guy you mentioned he doesn't separate well, but with Justin Herbert as his quarterback, there's a possibility there. Obviously, he has the drop issues, which I mean, just go catch
exactly the best hands.
Go catch 2,000 balls in the offseason. Like, what are you doing? If you're not catching 100, 200, 300 balls a day and you're an NFL wide receiver, what are you doing in the offseason? Anyways, just quick thoughts on maybe Jameson Williams.
Yeah, I mean, Quentin Johnston, vis-a-vis, yeah, I mean, you can always pinpoint like a player where something happened, but like I don't think that comparison is like so neat. And also like Jameson Williams was suspended. He was dealing with injuries. That's not like Johnston's been healthy. He's just been bad. And like he can't separate. I don't see why he would magically start separating really well in year 3. And like, yes, the guy can't catch. It's a major problem as a wide receiver. I'm pretty skeptical. Yes, there's just some value by virtue of like being stationed on the field with Justin Herbert throwing passes to you, especially if you are a player whose rep share tends to run deeper. As Quentin Johnston is. But I do not think that he is going to have a Jameson Williams year 3 type breakout.
All right, just want to give a shout out to the Best Ball Bros full fade on Quentin Johnston this year from Judah. Let's move on to the last team here, the Denver Broncos. Broncos situated right behind the Los Angeles Chargers, plus 330 to win the division. They were one of the best defenses in the NFL last year, and they got a little bit better. They got Dre Greenlaw, bring in Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, guys who are kind of over the aging curve, but still good players. Neck and neck with the Chargers right now. You seem to be kind of fading the Chargers. So do you feel the same way about the Broncos, or are they that frisky team that's going to squeak into the playoffs again this year?
Yeah, I'm bullish on them. I was like coming in. I'm going to come in strong. I am bullish on the Broncos. I think this is a defense that obviously was terrific last season, both in their pass and rush. They were awesome, top 5 in like basically any category, and I think they kind of got better on paper. Like you mentioned Hufanga, you mentioned Greenlaw. They're drafting Barton in the first round of cornerback. Like Riley Moss really struggled. And was picked on, especially in that Browns game, which was like basically their only bad defensive game. But this defense to me, like defense is generally unstable. This is absolutely a loaded defense though. And it would be pretty surprising to me if they weren't. They might not necessarily be able to repeat their success of last season, but it's still a top unit. And then you go to the flip side, and I think Bo Nix is a really interesting case here. He basically just like avoided negative plays. Like that was the play style. If you look at like his expected completion percentage, it was like among the highest in the league. I believe it was top 3. And I guess it depends on what model you use. But the model I use, it was top 3. He was top 5 in his sack avoidance and his pressure to sack rate. He like did very, very well in system and operating that. He was like one of the lowest turnover worthy play rate because it was a conservative choice and a play style. And that limits your offense in some way, right? Because like there's a trade-off to like taking on risk, which is that like, yes, you might, hold the ball for an extra second longer and get sacked, but that also might lead to the 30-yard completion and that explosive nature of the offense. That's the case for like, okay, there's a high floor for this team because I believe that will continue in some way, at least the sack avoidance. The question is like, can you kind of take that next step and generate more of these positive plays rather than just avoiding negative plays? Even as a scrambler, this is true. Like all the value he added as a scrambler was not taking sacks. He was terrible throwing on the run and not a particularly great scrambler, actually, even though he scrambled fairly often. With all that said, as we talked about earlier, like quarterbacks going from year 1 to year 2, there is like a real trend towards getting better. It is not as though like these things are flat. Quarterbacks do improve. And even if we look on the micro level, this was a team and a quarterback in Bo Nix who got a lot better from the first half of the season to the second half of the season. Again, this is something we've seen in quarterback development in the past. And I think that's probably a sign that like it will continue. And he's in Sean Payton's offense. He's got a great scheme around him that I think is going to cater to his strengths. And I think we see, right, it's like one thing for Geno Smith to have like a great second half. It's probably going to be a small sample thing. But with the context of like the fact that Bo Nix was a rookie and like how much better he was almost like he was one of the worst quarterbacks from a production standpoint in the first half. And like I think he was like top 7 in the second half. Obviously, there's going to be some noise there, but I think the directionality of that is legit. And you add that up with a defense that I think has a pretty high floor. And like if Knicks can take even like a bigger gap or a bigger leap, I don't think this team is contending for a Super Bowl, but I think this is a team that can very much play for the playoffs, even though I think they were kind of a fraudulent playoff team last year.
Yeah, they kind of scream like team that's going to make the playoffs and maybe cause some I don't want to say like be an upset team, but like kind of an upset candidate in the first round where they might be the underdog going into that first week of the playoffs, and maybe they upset a team there. My only concern with them is like obviously you mentioned the floor they have as a result of their defense, and Sean Payton's obviously a great offensive mind. I think his Achilles heel though is that how arrogant he is, because I would have to think he has a hand in the talent selection and sort of the roster building. It's probably not fully him, but I'm sure he's involved in the discourse there. But going into the season with, I mean, your two biggest ads are RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. Like, you want your wide receiver core to be Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Devon Vele. Like, that kind of is like a kind of scary offense, and not in the good way. But hey, maybe Bo Nix can elevate along with Sean Payton. They can do enough to be a good enough team and win enough games for this Broncos team.
Jason is just, do you remember these Saints teams, 2010, 2014? You got like Marquise Colston as like a legit receiver, and you're just throwing random guys, and Drew Brees is passing for 5,000 yards a season.
Listen, the only difference
I can just
here,
pull out all those receivers, and
yeah,
I see that's the same thing.
I know, yeah. Michael Thomas, even towards the end of his career. Yeah. Anyways, that's it on the Denver Broncos here. Just a little bit worried about their offense, but hey, like you mentioned, the defense, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, maybe they can do it here. Before we head out, what team has the widest range of outcomes do you feel in this division? Chargers. All right, the Chargers. Just because of their floor or their ceiling? I'm going to guess more towards their floor there, unfortunately.
I think it's both, right? It's like, okay, if they decide, this like,
let's throw the ball.
If they're not running the ball so much, and like they let Justin Herbert cook, and he has one of his better seasons and he's healthy, yeah, that's like absolutely a possibility where like he has not performed at a top 5 clip in a couple of years, even though a lot of his underlying metrics would suggest he's there, and he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. Like, yeah, you could have like an MVP type season and they can win 13 games. It also would not surprise me if they just like have a really vanilla offense that insists on running the ball and they win 5. Yeah, I think that's all in the cards.
All right. Last question before we head out here. Exact finishing order for the AFC West. Give it to me.
We got the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, and the Raiders.
All right. Well, it's not it's pretty close to chalk, but it's not the number one thing on the board. Plus 550 for that over at FanDuel if you want to go check that out. FanDuel.com/forward progress. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That wraps it up for us here today. If you like this video, do us a favor, smash that like button. We want to hear your thoughts on the AFC West. Are we too high on a team, too low on a team? Let us know in the comment section down below. Is it true? Do you agree with Judah that Patrick Mahomes is a little fat and over the hill? Let us know in the comment section down below. And if you're new to the channel, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn on notification bells, because we've got tons of videos coming your way throughout the offseason, and we're excited to get those towards you. We want them to be directly in your inbox, so make sure you ring that bell. You get notified right when they're published live. That wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.